Hello, everyone. Nancy here, and welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Rescue Mission. It's where I do these videos and podcast episodes where I talk about some things that, a lot of entrepreneurs are going through. I myself obviously can provide some insight around. And this month's topic actually is going to circulate around something that I deal with on a daily basis, and so many others do as well, and that is ADHD. Okay. So that stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And it's something that, as an adult, I have really learned to manage in many different ways as an entrepreneur. Whew, let's take that a whole step and level deeper. And I've really, really applied different things, throughout the years to really make me more effective. And so I wanted to share with you guys a little bit more about the specific traits of, someone with ADHD. Because again, this could be things that you never even thought about, or you wondered why kept cyclically bubbling up for you, or maybe some frustrations or triggers that were happening. And you didn't realize, right? It was directly connected to some of the things that come along with the wonderful ADHD. Now, just transparently talking about it, of course I have it. Um, I consider it, and over time, it definitely has its moments where it's super frustrating and, not being able to focus and sometimes sitting there and just feeling so, overwhelmed in so many different directions to go in. I consider it now, throughout the years, I consider it a superpower. The ability that I have to be able to really think through things in a certain way and throw my energy right at certain tasks or projects is pretty special. But again, my brain definitely works very different than a lot of different people. So I want to go through some of the things that kind of have bubbled up for me. In fact, I'm going to glance over here if you see me on video at some of my notes that I've taken lately. And these are some of the things and the challenges, right, that, I have faced, but also many others have faced with ADHD. And at the end, I'm going to share some tools with you, some tools, some tips, some recommendations, not just things that have been recommended to me, but things that I do on a day to day basis to be most effective in my own productivity. Okay. And a way to harness it. So the first, challenge, right, that I've really navigated with ADHD is time blindness, and also object permanence. Okay. So, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, time blindness means that time can go by very quickly and you don't even realize it. Okay. So, for example, I could be sitting, at the computer and I'm thinking maybe 10 minutes went by and it's been a lot of time. And Scott's knocking at my door saying, "Hey, we're going to eat dinner. What are you doing? You got to like shut the computer down." And so sometimes I can get so hyper focused that I lose track of time. And I really also don't know how long some things take. And I give unrealistic expectations as well. So for me, that's how I kind of interpret the time blindness. It definitely shows up in different ways, but I can get so hyper focused that I will not realize that a lot of time has gone by. And the neat thing is, I remember listening to a podcast years ago that you you perceive time as going by quicker when you're actually doing things you like, and you enjoy doing. So if you think about it, right, time flies by when you're having fun. I like to think of it that way, right? When we're so involved and we're focused and we're getting things done and we're liking what we're doing, sometimes that can be tough, right? And time can go by. So just making sure that you are keeping an eye on the clock, you're time blocking, right? So you're setting aside certain time to get certain things done. And, once you get the train going, just make sure that you are, again, cutting things off and providing some boundaries around that. Now, object permanence. Now, this is something that I didn't really think about until my sister actually brought it up. I think it was last year, and this is pretty wild. Okay. So object permanence is almost like if something is out of sight, it's out of mind. Right. So, for example, if I go grocery shopping and I buy a container of honey and I buy some pasta sauce and I buy some spaghetti, if I don't see it consistently, like visually see it, it's almost like I forget it even exists. And so then I'll order another one and I'll order another one. So having things in front of your face right? Often I form little piles all over the house of, sorry, Scott. I form little piles of like notebooks and pens and pencils and things like that because I want to remember, right? Oh, I got to do this thing, or oh, I'm reading this book. So it kind of follows me throughout the house. Otherwise, I forget I have it. Okay. So that's a big thing. So object permanence is one of those ones where out of sight, out of mind, kind of applies. This also affects my closet. Okay. How many of you have ordered the same darn shirt like 5 times? I mean, I've gone in my closet, guys. I just did a clean out and got rid of a ton of clothes. And I probably had 5 of the same black shirts, like black long sleeve shirts. Like literally had ordered a ton of them to go with like a vest that I had. I only need one. Why in the world did I order 5? It's because I forgot I had it. It wasn't there. And so most of the clothes, I want to make sure that I know I have them. I do not fold up and put in my drawers. I actually hang them up on a hanger so then I can go and physically look, right, and get a scan of what I got going on. So folded up does not work very well for me. Having things on a hanger is actually help with that a lot, but that is the idea, right, of object permanence. So again, think about it. Maybe that's something that you haven't even realized, that you might have, been struggling with. But that's one there. Now, the next little challenge and some of the common right behaviors that come along with ADHD can also be okay. And this is more so, I would say, I had a lot of this whenever I was younger. In fact, whenever I was little, I got my name on the board often. Okay. So I apologize to all my teachers who probably were super annoyed, but I would always talk to the person next to me. I was always, causing distractions. I got my name on the board many times. My mom actually laminated a picture of a smiley face with its mouth zipped shut on my desk whenever I was in middle school, just to remind me, Nancy, slow down and zip those lips. So anyway, blurting out thoughts, not giving it a minute and taking a breath before you say something. So again, right, as an ADHD brain, sometimes things happen and they're processing at a much quicker speed, almost so quick where it's like the brain to the mouth, it's like, "Wah!" So to help with that, kind of slowing down, better said than done, right? But like slowing down and actually when you go to say something, stopping yourself and kind of processing it, right? Give it a second to digest a little bit. And I cannot tell you, right? Communication, especially whenever it comes to leadership skills, communication has been such a journey for me and has been such a skill that I have really, really focused on and practiced and, really over the years gotten a lot better at. And communication isn't just talking, guys, it's also listening. And so for me, of course, my brain works so quick that I'm like, yes, I know the answers. And then I spout out all the answers and everything. No, right? A good leader sits back and listens and slows down and asks the right questions, right? And you shine the spotlight on your team and you don't need to have all the answers. So, that's a big thing that I have worked on over the years. So really just like, take a minute, take a deep breath and let that process before you open your mouth and say the thing. The other thing is hyperfixation. I know that happens a lot with me where I will go all in on something and I will get out every book I have. In fact, if you guys could see my floor, I'm not going to show it, but I have books all over the floor kind of set up. I was doing a whole project on mapping out, content plans, and I'm in the process of working on a few things with AI. And I had everything mapped out and I went really hard and I hyper fixated on it for a good, I would say like a good couple days. But part of me started to get nervous because I know, right, my cyclical pattern is I will hyper focus on something and if I don't finish the darn project, it's going to be a messy thing right here on the floor, unfinished, and I'm not even going to know whenever I go back to this months later where I left off and it's almost like I didn't do it at all, right? So hyperfixation is definitely one of those real things and it can be very helpful. Like I said, right, it can be a superpower, but it can be also super frustrating because you start to get that, that knowing, right? If I don't finish this project, if I don't get it done, it's like I just wasted all this time. And so for me, it is a little bit of a trigger. But, again, what I would say is make sure that you have realistic time expectations for the things you are doing. Give yourself some boundaries. If you don't get everything done, come up with a system where you can kind of break things out and you can map out where you're at with the project. I will recommend some tools in just a few minutes, right? That have really helped with me with that, but really breaking those things down, and making sure that you're mapping them out to come back later, and all those good things are really going to set yourself up for success. Another thing, obviously another challenge is having a lot of different thoughts at the same time. um you know I'll just say it's really funny because, my husband and I work very differently and our brains are very different. And I always tell him, he's very grounding for me. He's very calm for the most part, and he really just kind of, he's got that even kind of energy. And sometimes we'll be, just driving in a car, for example, and I'll just ask him the most random questions. Like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And, "Hey, what do you think about that?" Or we'll be in the kitchen and I'll just, kind of totally go off on some random topic, which, honestly, he does now too. But I just think it's kind of, again, it's kind of fun. It keeps life interesting. But whenever it comes to work, okay, we want to make sure that we are able to hone in and focus. So, again, I'm going to share some tools shortly, that are going to help you kind of reel that in. But one thing that I just got to throw out there, especially for people who have ADHD, and there is so much potential and possibility for the things that you can get done in a day. If you don't set intentions for your day, for your hour, for your 20 minutes, for, whatever the breakdown might look like for how much time that you have, if you're not setting intentions and actually writing down what needs to get done, things can kind of, the doors can come off the hinges a little bit. Okay. So that's just a big thing there. Now, the other one is, doing something unrelated to the task at hand, but not being able to stop. So, how many of you who have ADHD have, been maybe doing one thing, right? So maybe you're cooking in the kitchen and then you see something like, oh, that drawer needs to be tightened, and you're in the middle of cooking and then you start tightening the screw on the drawer. And then maybe, you notice that the stairs are a little bit dirty. And so then you start vacuuming. And next thing you know, you've got like 3 or 4 things that you're juggling and you're half doing all of them. Right? So that's another struggle. So again, making sure to kind of reel it in, acknowledge when you're doing that and stop yourself. Hey, okay, I'm gonna add that to my list. Tightening the screw on the door on the kitchen or whatever. Maybe I'll add that to the list. Or if it's something super quick you can get done, just stay honed in on getting that done. But yeah, that is the struggle is real. The other is okay, so like energy, grinding your teeth, I hum or whistle, they call it like it's a way to kind of like self-soothe yourself or kind of like, be more grounded. Some people have like the bouncy leg, where they're just kind of like, all this energy is kind of pent up. If you find yourself feeling like that, or you're fidgeting, or you're feeling the need to kind of get up and move, right? Maybe you got to get up and stretch. Maybe in the afternoon when you're doing a lot of work and you're just feeling kind of restless, go for a little walk, guys. Taking a 20-minute walk, or a little lunch break breaks up the day, right? It allows you to kind of get up and shift gears for a minute. And so sometimes that can be incredibly more productive than you sitting there at the computer, losing your mind, feeling all this energy. When really taking a quick little walk and getting some of that energy out can really help kind of reground you. Okay. And again, I hum and whistle all day long, but whatever works for you. So the next things, so a few things actually that I wrote down that are day-to-day struggles, for me that I really noticed a lot more as I've been getting older. It's really hard for me to shift gears. And whenever I say shift gears, if I'm super focused on getting something done, let's say it's creating the curriculum for a training, let's say it's I'm planning out all my content, maybe it's writing a chapter in a book. I don't shift gears very quickly, meaning I can't go from this mode to, all right, down to the minute. Okay, I've got a coaching call. Now I've got to totally take off that hat and I got to put this other hat on. I don't do that very well. In fact, it's very triggering for me. So I have learned that I need to really get ahead of my schedule. In fact, cyclically, I was doing this, and Scott kept saying, "Go look at your calendar, see what you have planned out and block out time, like chunks of time to get things done." And so, I just realized that, whenever I work on projects or, specific things, I need like 3-hour blocks. I'm not going to work well if I'm working for an hour in the morning and then I got all these coaching calls and then I've got an hour in the afternoon. It just doesn't work for me. So I think that's the other thing is, everyone works a little differently. But if that's the case with you and you don't shift gears very easily, make sure that you are taking a look at your schedule and you're protecting time for projects or for specific things. Now, again, going back to coaching, let's say you have consulting calls or coaching calls, maybe you assign a whole day, right? Scott and I typically do a lot of our teaching and coaching on Thursdays. So that's a day where I just have resigned myself to the fact, Nancy, turn the project brain off. You are not getting anything done. All these little projects that you have built up, you're not going to get them done. You're going to focus on really, really just coaching, consulting, being present and listening. Okay. And so that has made a big deal, but I really had to realize that was how I worked and kind of again why it was so triggering was it was really hard for me to shift. Now, also on that topic, it's kind of funny because, I'll tell Scott, just please do not ever come into my office without kind of letting me know. Meaning he used to come in and I would be fully focused, diving into something, everything's in my brain and I don't have it typed out yet. And he would come in and he would say, "Hey, what do you think about?" And it would just be like all this stuff. And it would be like a whole separate kind of like thing, and I'm like, "What are you trying to do?" Sabotage me, because it was like totally throwing me off my game, and again, it was a very big trigger for me because if I lose all of this, right, it all comes crashing down. So, he knows now. I'm like, "Look, if I am in super focus mode, please just like, kind of off limits, in the office for now. If you really need something, text me or message me just to kind of give me a heads up so that I can kind of pump back the brakes a little bit and then I can shift gears." Which again, I don't love to do, but I'll do it if there's an emergency. Okay. So that's the big thing. The other thing too, let's see. I can't plan more than one big thing in a day. Otherwise I get overwhelmed. Okay. So Scott can literally get on an airplane, fly, get to a place, do a speaking engagement, have a dinner with people, and then get back on a plane and come home and then work the next morning. That sounds wild to me, okay? Because in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, I need to get there the day before. I need full chill out mode in my hotel. I need a nice calm dinner, and then the next morning, then I can shift into that, speaking mode or training. And then whatever happens, after that, okay, great, but let's keep it to a minimum. And then I'm back on the plane, I'm going home." So that also works. Think of how many of us have like doctor's appointments or, certain things that we have scheduled in our day. I just know, I mean, it really is going to interrupt the flow of getting things done. So I know that ahead of time that if I have a doctor's appointment, I'm going to try to schedule it either at the very beginning of my day because nothing's going to start right until I get home, or I schedule it for the end of the day. Okay. Meaning I am done. All my work's done. I know I had a stopping point and then that thing's happening. So it has shifted right over time for me where your day is not a complete wash because you've got one appointment. But I know that again, it's not good to put those things in the middle because that's really going to again throw off my productivity. Okay, so that's another one I thought was definitely relevant. Decision fatigue. Okay. So especially when it comes to like planning dinners or thinking of, having to make a lot of decisions, I just get way overstimulated. So even on vacation, think about the things, and again, I'll share a couple tools in a minute, but think about the things that you can plan out ahead of time, whether it be mapping out a trip and kind of like, identifying where you're going to go and creating those reservations. Think of the stuff that you can get off of your mind, so that it's less frustrating when you're in it. Think about, again, I say planning out dinner. It's one of me and Scott's least favorite things to do. I think we just, I have so many food allergies and I have Hashimoto's. So it's a struggle sometimes to eat creatively, with some of the restrictions. But the thing is when I don't plan out the meals for the week or what we're gonna eat, and I mean, obviously Scott does that as well, but if we don't plan all that out, it's like day to day, and that's having to come up with decisions and figure things out on the fly is a trigger for me. So again, what can you take off your mind? What can you plan ahead for so that again, it's much smoother and it's not an issue? Okay. The other one here is, it's funny because I always call myself like an introverted extrovert. But I definitely get overstimulated sometimes in social situations where I don't know a lot of people, or if there's big emotions involved, or people are really like intense. I'm kind of like, "Whoa, okay, like, bring it down a notch," just because it's a lot, right? A lot for my brain to even comprehend. There's a lot going on in there at all times. But definitely that overstimulation, I found that the older that I get, the more I wouldn't say that I don't like to be around lots of people. I do. I really actually, again, that's kind of the extroverted side of things. I love being around people, but if it's long periods of time and it's people I don't know, and I'm kind of like, again, trying to figure out the energy and there's a lot of stimulation, it gets to a point usually where I either need to take a little breather or, I'm going to need to recharge my battery, go home, go to bed, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that I've definitely realized. And again, for many people with ADHD, sometimes that overstimulation. It's also, I will say, one thing that I'm learning more and more that a lot of times an ADHD diagnosis will come with other buddies, we'll say, right? So that could be, OCD, it could be, hyper, I think it's called highly sensitive person. So it's someone who is again easily stimulated by, different things. But there's definitely like a lot of little sidekicks, right? That the more and more again I'm learning about myself and how my brain works that are coming out of the woodwork. And I just find it really, really empowering in a way, right? Learning more about yourself and about how you work and about the things that you can kind of get in front of helps reduce a lot of those triggers and the frustrations, and it really helps you to live a happier life. And so that's really the mission, that I've had for a long time is just how can I harness this and treat it again like a superpower, because having ADHD, where it can be very frustrating at times, focusing and working through things and kind of calming that brain down, it can also be incredibly amazing. And so I wouldn't have it any other way. So, the ADHD quirks that I wrote down. So again, hyperfixation is a big one. I know I mentioned this before, but one thing that I noted on here, if I get the idea that I want to do something, it's kind of like moving furniture, right? If I'm all by myself and I'm like, I'm going to move this furniture, I will get it done, right? I'm like, that's it. It's happening right now. So another example of this one day, I decided I thought it would be a really great idea if we built a dog yard right in our backyard. So we have a fenced in yard. However, we have ponds, with our koi, and we have lots of like really cool plants and things like that that we didn't want the dogs to get into and eat or pee on, that kind of thing. So, the other issue was a lot of times the dogs were going outside, and if it was raining or if it was muddy, their paws were getting disgusting. And then they were coming in the house, and it was like, this reoccurring cycle of cleaning off their tooties, every time they came in from the rain. And it just was this never ending, disgusting cycle of just dirty dogs and grossness. So, came up with this idea that we were going to build a dog yard, which would be all pebbles, where again, it would be easy cleanup for poo poo and pee pee. And then we could put a gate, with another fence around it that can open up into a larger area where they could run laps and do all that good stuff. But again, we'd be protecting, the hydrangeas and the, zinnias and all the other plants that we have. I decided I wanted to do it and I was like, it's getting done today. And I just made it my mission and I hyper fixated on it and I hyper focused and I said, this is it. This is all that matters today. And so we ended up getting it done. And it was a big project. We actually put the weed guard down. We put a lot of the bags of pebbles. And whenever I say bags of pebbles, it was like, guys, like 100 bags of pebbles. So we had to take multiple trips to Home Depot. We had to put stakes in the ground. So we had to get, one of those big giant like hammers, to get the stakes in the ground. We put up the, animal fencing around, had to be the right size and safe for dogs. And then, of course, had to get the gate built and everything. And then again, install the other fence. And we did it. Okay. And I was just hell bent, no matter what, we were going to get that thing done. So that hyperfixation can be really, really cool. And, when focusing on that one thing, you can really, really move mountains at certain times. Now let's see. This is funny. I put the note here. So some other quirks, cleaning, jumping from room to room, starting tasks, never fully completing them. Yes, there's a lot of half done things throughout the house. Going to bed isn't easy. So I thought this one was really interesting. I asked my husband because someone had posted it online and it was, when you go to bed at night, I didn't know that everyone wasn't thinking and replaying their day and thinking of 1,000 things. And I asked my husband that. I said, when you go to bed and close your eyes, like, is your brain kind of clear? Like, are you, um, in a state of calm and like, are you ready for bed? And he goes, yeah, like I'm thinking about nothing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like replaying the day. I'm thinking through how things could have been better and what could have I have done and accomplished. And I'm thinking about tomorrow. And I've got all these thoughts, like literally like a computer running through my head at all times. And it's just all these random thoughts and songs and all kinds of stuff playing through my head. And so that's another thing again with ADHD, you kind of like never have that calm. So I have been looking more into, some things that can help with that. One is actually meditation. So that's something that I'm going to learn a little bit more about. Don't have a lot to report because I haven't really gotten into it yet. But I definitely want to learn to be a little bit more present. They say that depression is focusing too much on the past, right? And anxiety is focusing too much on the future. And I think we all have a little case of anxiety at times, right? So, to help with that, again, I really want to back it up a little bit and try to work on being more present, in the moment and not having to kind of recap or think about all these different things. So, that's just another thing. Now, overthinking and confidence, that's another one. I have a little bit of the OCD trait where I want things to be perfect. Whenever I was writing my book, for example, I would look at my chapter one 1,000 times and I would update it every single time I went in there. And I could have just said, you know what? No, I'll look at that later when I do my final review. But I would literally go in and I would fine tune and micro focus right on the chapter one. And that darn chapter one got rewritten probably 1,000 times. But, rereading things, trying to think how others are going to perceive it, wanting it to be perfect, right? That can definitely be something that bubbles up. But guys, one thing that we got to share, in fact, we talked about this morning on our mindset call that we do with our expert authority members. One thing that we shared was we can't listen to the voice inside of us that's always telling us, you're not good enough or it's not good enough. And, that thing that holds us back and says, you shouldn't be doing this or who are you? Guys, we're going to do it and it might not be perfect, but we're going to do it in our own way. And so that's one thing that I've really worked on. And I understand that not everything has to be perfect. Okay. And sometimes it's even better that way. The other thing that has really helped, so I don't have a lot of confidence in my memory, like my short-term memory, well, even long-term memory for that case. So things like, I'll say my GPS, like directions, getting places, I rely heavily on, obviously my GPS. Whenever I read something, like let's say it's a book, and I'm listening to it on Audible, or I'm listening to a really cool podcast episode. One thing that I do is I actually have a notes, the notes app on my phone, and I'll do talk to text and I'll take notes for things that really stood out to me. So I have a naming convention where if it's something that I save or I want to talk about in my content later, I'll actually put the word content, colon, and then the topic. and then I'll put the bullet points that I want to remember and I'll save it. And so next time I, need some content ideas or I want to go back to that one, I can easily search it within my notes. If it's a book, right, and I want to go through each chapter and I want to note the biggest things, other than highlighting, if I'm listening to it on Audible, it'll say book and then it'll be colon and then the title of the book and then I'll kind of break it down from chapters in there so I can go back. But yeah, that's one thing that helps a little bit with confidence. When I play guitar, I have a tabs app where I save all my favorite tabs. I even print them out, into a folder sometimes. But that is one thing that I'm working on is actually trusting myself a little bit more because if I put the paper over there and I put the phone away, if I just trust myself to remember things, I know I can do it. I can do it with piano. Why can't I do it with guitar? And then lastly, so to wrap all this up, because again, it's going to be a big focus, right, for this whole month. And so for the next few weeks, I will be talking more about it. I want to share a few tools, right, that can really help and a couple techniques. So the first technique that really helps is something called body doubling. So body doubling is when you work with someone else, which can help increase motivation and accountability. So an example of this, I actually started it with my copywriter about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I told her, I said, you know what, let's just get on a Zoom call and let's talk through this stuff together, on the call. And so we started talking through it. And I said, you know what, you don't even have to say anything. Just watch me as I do this. And then I'll kind of like add some things here and there. So she was doing obviously her work, and then I was getting things done. And every once in a while, if I needed some redirection or some guidance, she was there. I do this as well with our COO, with Christy. She helps us to manage projects and, again, with some of the content planning and so much more. We'll get on a call. And again, she'll kind of just be a second set of eyes over my shoulder and we'll kind of work through projects together. And what that does is, again, it just gives that extra little accountability and that motivation, right? Having someone else there with me in it doing it can be really helpful. And again, you can do it very productively where, again, she's getting stuff done, you're getting stuff done. But this really could be lots of different things, in life, even like folding clothes, doing it with a buddy, doing chores, that kind of thing. But anyway, there's also a site called FocusMate. So it's focusmate.com. It's free. You can actually sign up for time slots, for 50-minute time slots. And if there's something that you need to get done, you pick the time slot and they'll pair you up with someone else who's got to get something done. And so I've done it before where I've paired up. In fact, one woman was like, I really need to clean my house because I've got friends coming over and I have no drive to do it. So that's what I want to accomplish in my 50 minutes. And you basically state what you want to get done and then you hit mute and then you can either leave your video on or you can turn it off. And then at the end of the 15 minutes, you reconvene and you say, hey, how did it go? Well, this was so funny because I left my camera on and she left her camera on and she was running all over her house and she had this cat that was following her all over and it just kind of made me giggle. But again, it was really reassuring and really cool to know that someone else was working on getting their thing done. And again, it was extra accountability because I didn't want to get back on that call whenever the alarm went off and say, I didn't do it. I was just kind of like goofing off over here. Like, no, it was like, all right, for 50 minutes, I can do this. The next thing, kind of on that same note, as far as like setting the time limits, is the Pomodoro technique. So I actually have a little timer. Here it is. So I have this next to my desk and, it has different times on it, right? So usually 20 minutes I use a lot where you just flip it. I got it on Amazon, but you can also just look up Pomodoro timer and I'll set it for the 20 minutes and then I'll state what I want to get done. So if for 20 minutes I want to check all my emails and respond to all my clients and all my, potential XYZs, great. I've got 20 minutes to get it done. And what it is it's setting 20-minute work sprints. And again, you can set more, but 20 minutes is a good sweet spot. And then you take a break, right? You reward yourself if you achieve what you had to get done at the end of that 20 minutes. If you didn't get it done, reset it for another 20 minutes and then say hyper focus on getting it done. So it's just a nice little way to have kind of some time sprints. But it's called the Pomodoro technique. Really cool. The other one, so I already mentioned it, I use my notes on my phone a lot, whether it's, on your phone or in a journal, just keeping things noted down and, keeping yourself on track. How many of us, right, especially as entrepreneurs, have had business ideas, right? We've thought of all these amazing things and we're like, oh my God, one day that would be amazing to do. Or, oh, this would be an amazing whatever. Awesome, guys. Go open your notes in your phone or on your computer and create a little, note entitled business ideas or brain dump business ideas. Okay. That's the place where you can always go to dump those ideas. Because again, you actually start to get frustrated when you don't dump them and you're like, well, I'll never think of that again or whatever. It gives you that kind of anxiety and that frustration. Well, now you got a place to put it, right? So again, just give yourself a place to offload it. That way you can move on or get back to the task at hand. The other thing that is really helpful and has been very helpful for me is using Trello. Trello is a digital project management tool. So you can go to trello.com. In fact, I have the free version. It's amazing. You're able to create different boards and workspaces and really organize things. Guys, you can do this for your personal life. You can map out your meal plan, house projects, things that you want to get done. You can have a whole workspace for that. You can create a whole separate workspace for every single client you're working with. You could create workspaces for your entire business and you can build things out just so you can see it at a high level view. But being able to map out your projects and keep things organized can be an absolute game changer. So, highly recommend using Trello. Also, Google Calendar. I live and breathe by my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. Okay. So every single day, what I do is I've got a board that's right next to my desk. It's got the entire month on it, it's got the day kind of breakdown, and then it's got the week. And being able to map out my month and then map out the week and then, organize my day makes me 1,000 times more productive. And so having that is really nice. But what I do is I take the information from my Google Calendar and I'll put it there. The other thing that's a really good tip that has really helped is whatever you can automate um, for things that are causing you frustration, try to automate it. Okay. So if it's paying bills, if it's doctor visits, you need to schedule, vitamins that you run out of consistently every month, right? It's like usually a 30-day supply. Dog food. I just did this the other day. Like, one of our mini schnauzers gets a special pharmacy food for urinary crystals. So I have to order this special food from Chewy. Well, rather than wait till she runs out and then panic about it and have to run out and, go to the store, I can put it on auto ship. So that's what I did. I'm like, all right, what things can I put on auto ship to take off my plate and off that mental strain? So again, when you think about that, what can you automate? What can you get going, routinely so you don't have to think about it and it doesn't pile up on that mental fatigue? And keeping your space clean. Okay. So that's a big one. Again, I'm not going to show you my workspace right now because that is on my to do. But keeping your workspace clean and clutter free, guys, is super helpful. They usually say that your outward, organization or clutter is usually a depiction of what's going on in your head. So I know you want to get things clear, you want to have that clarity, and you want to be able to focus on specific things throughout the day. So having a clean and clear workspace can really, really help with a lot of different things. So hopefully that, helped a couple of you or a few of you or whatever, people who might already have ADHD, or maybe you have people who have ADHD in your life and, maybe you want to get to understand them a little bit better. But, knowing our traits, knowing the characteristics, knowing the challenges, right? Certain things can be more difficult, can really make a world of difference. And knowing how to most effectively handle things, from your perspective and for your particular needs can be a complete game changer. And I just know over the years, I've done so many things and not even realized it that have really helped me create the frameworks and the routines and the things that have really helped me harness and make me feel, that my ADHD is actually a superpower. So hopefully this episode helped many of you. And if you guys have any thoughts, recommendations, or maybe even some realizations yourself that you want to share, definitely share that. And hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and check out, right? I'm going to be definitely doing some more episodes about ADHD. So excited to have this conversation for this month. And October, just so you guys know, is ADHD Awareness Month. So I will catch you next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.